The quest for the dream key. During the summer break of my sophomore year in college, my senior, who was obsessed with the occult, said, "I've got something interesting. Come over." When someone you respect as a mentor says something like that, you can't refuse. So I headed over to his place. His apartment was a rundown unit on the first floor, and as usual, the door wasn't locked. I knocked and walked in, finding him sitting on the tatami floor, fiddling with something. It was a cylindrical metal box about the size of a roll of toilet paper. The surface was rusted. "Is that box what's so interesting?" I asked. "If you open it, you supposedly die," he replied. I thought to myself that this guy wouldn't learn his lesson until he actually died. "Are you going to open it?" "I want to, but I can't." The box had small, button-like protrusions all over it, and at the top, there was something that looked like a keyhole. "You have to press the buttons in the correct sequence to open it," he explained, fully absorbed in trying to solve the puzzle. "Why do you die if you open it?" "No idea." "Where did you get it?" "At an antique shop in Sex City." "Do you really want to open it?" "I do, but I can't." I really wanted to try solving the puzzle since I enjoy that sort of thing, but I held back. There are 50 buttons. I don't know how many need to be pressed in the correct order, but judging by the sounds, I feel like I'm getting close. "And what about the keyhole?" "That's the tricky part." He sighed. It seemed that even if he solved the button puzzle, the box wouldn't open without the key. "Don't you have the key?" "I did. It came as a set." But he lost it. He said it with a sad expression. "Where?" "In my room." "Then just search for it. This room's not exactly spacious." He shook his head. "I picked it up." "What?" I didn't understand. "I dropped it somewhere in the room after putting it in my pocket. I thought, I'll look for it tomorrow, and went to bed. That night, I found it in my dream, lying near the entrance. So I picked it up." Is this guy for real? When I woke up, I thought it might have been a prophetic dream. I searched the entrance, but it wasn't there. I searched the entire room, but still couldn't find it. Then, that night, I dreamed about it again. This time, finding it in my pocket. A shiver ran down my spine. This was getting weird. The next morning, I checked my pocket, but of course, the key wasn't there. That's when I realized I shouldn't have picked it up in my dream. This is getting creepier. Since then, the key hasn't left my dreams. It's always in my pocket in the dream. I even tried putting it in a drawer in the dream and then opening the drawer when I woke up. But of course, it wasn't there. I'm really at a loss here. He was telling an unbelievable story. So, because he picked up the lost key in his dream, it disappeared from reality and now only exists in his dreams. And he's trying to figure out a way to bring it back from the dream world to reality. It sounded crazy, but coming from him, it didn't seem so far-fetched, and that made it scarier. "Ah, messed up again," he said, placing the box on the floor. Apparently, the promising sound he had been hearing reset back to the beginning. "But even if you solve the button puzzle, you can't open it without the key, right?" He gave me a creepy smile. "The reason I called you over today is because I'm determined to open it." A chill ran down my spine, and I took a step back. If I can't get the key out of the dream, I thought, why not open it in the dream? What? What is he talking about? So, once I solve the puzzle, I can open it. Wait a minute. Ignoring my pale face, he started rummaging through the pockets of his jeans. And then, with this key, he held out a rusted gray key. At that moment, I heard an incredibly loud sound, like metal shattering. The floor seemed to drop away, the world went dark, and everything became confusing. I was shaken awake, and light returned. It was my mentor. Just kidding. My head was still in a daze. The key was still in his hand. "I can't believe you fainted." He lifted me up under my arm and said with a delighted expression, "Impressive. You immediately understood what that key meant. If you were more susceptible to suggestion, you might have vanished in front of me." I couldn't say anything. Apparently, the whole story about the key in the dream was a lie. He had just been messing with me that day, and in the end, he never managed to solve the box puzzle. I have no idea what became of that box after that. Mahjong. My mentor is terrible at Mahjong. Of course, he's not my Mahjong mentor. but someone with an unusually strong sense for the supernatural, a senior from university who I, being a fan of the occult, had developed a rather creepy master-disciple relationship with, at least from an outsider's perspective. It didn't take more than 2 or 3 games to realize how bad he was. I had been playing mahjong like crazy with friends since high school. So as a freshman, I was already a cut above the rest, much to the annoyance of the upperclassmen in the club. I was delighted to find something I could actually beat my mentor at. So I often invited him to play, but he rarely agreed. He probably didn't want to show his weakness. One summer during my first year, I found myself alone in the club room with another graduate student who happened to be a friend of my mentor. Somehow, we started talking about my mentor. And when I mentioned how bad he was at mahjong, the grad student, who said he wasn't much into mahjong himself, began to tell me an unexpected story. Apparently, when my mentor had just started university, like many other healthy young men, he got into mahjong. During his debut game with the club, he ended up winning with a yakuman, the highest scoring hand in mahjong. After that, he repeatedly won with yakuman hands, freaking out his fellow players. I'd only heard stories about it, so I thought it was impressive, but I guess he wasn't that good after all, the grad student said. Some people only aim for yakuman hands. Even if they manage to win with them more often than others, they're usually not great players. When I said that, the grad student replied, I heard he kept getting a yakuman that's supposed to kill you if you win with it. What? I immediately thought of a hand called 9 Gates. It's a hand made by forming a sequence like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 9, 9, all in one suit. It's considered the most beautiful hand in mahjong, but it's also incredibly difficult to make. There's even a legend among mahjong players that says whoever wins with it will die. Of course, I've never made one, nor have I seen one in person. I felt a chill. I heard he even burned his mahjong tiles a few times. It's said that after winning with 9 gates, you should burn the tiles and never use them again. I felt like I was glimpsing a mysterious side of my mentor, and was both frightened and intrigued. People who aim for yakuman hands often lose most games. That's what I had said earlier. In other words, after accidentally winning with 9 gates in his debut game, my mentor must have become hooked and kept aiming for it in every game thereafter. Since it's such a rare hand, he usually lost. But on those rare occasions when he succeeded, he ended up having to burn the tiles. I shared my theory with the grad student. It's the kind of story he would love, right? A hand that kills you if you win with it. However, the grad student tilted his head. But I'm not sure if it was called 9 gates. The yakuman he kept getting. He then frowned, thinking hard. It was something like Heaven's Wrath or Divine Retribution. He suddenly clapped his hands. Ah, I remember. It was Tenhu. Heavenly hand. I froze. Now that he mentioned it, there's a similar legend about Tenhu, where it's said that whoever wins with it will die. However, unlike 9 gates, which you can aim for, Tenhu is purely based on chance. It's a hand where you win as soon as the initial tiles are dealt, completely by luck. Despite having an equal chance of occurring in every game without any effort, it's said to be a hand so rare that it's cursed, and whoever wins with it will die. The difficulty of achieving it far surpasses 9 gates, and my mentor had been winning with it over and over. I felt like I had just glimpsed the unfathomable depths of my mentor, and it sent shivers down my spine. He'd love the idea of a hand that kills you if you win with it, the grad student said with a carefree laugh. But I couldn't laugh along. After that, I never played mahjong with my mentor again. The fish. I believe there are people who hold the door to another world. They live and breathe right beside us in our everyday lives, and most of us never notice them, nor do we need to. But when you happen to come into contact with such a person, your ordinary life can quickly transform. For me, there were 2 people who opened that door to the world beside our everyday reality. That was all there was to it. Around my first year of university, I used to frequent an occult forum on a local message board. The people I met there were, in a way, amateur occult enthusiasts. Had I been in high school, I would have been genuinely impressed. But I had already met someone in university who was so extraordinary that I considered him my mentor. So I found the forum somewhat lacking. However, while hanging out with this group of black magic enthusiasts who enjoyed conducting seances, I encountered one particularly intriguing individual, a woman who went by the username Kyosuke. She was about 2 or 3 years older than me, I believe. Despite being part of a rather gloomy black magic group, she had a bright personality and a strikingly handsome appearance. Because of that, everyone called her Kyosuke, even in person, and she seemed to like it. During one of our offline meetings, the topic of dreams came up. Everyone loved talking about things like prophetic dreams, so the conversation was lively. But Kyosuke remained silent, drinking her beer. When I asked her what was wrong, she simply said, "I don't dream." Sensing that she might be in a bad mood, I didn't press further, but that one statement stuck with me. When summer break of my first year rolled around, I was like a fish in water, spending my days visiting haunted spots and indulging in all things occult. Then, one day, I woke up in an unfamiliar room. I raised myself from the sofa I'd been sleeping on, surrounded by darkness. My clothes smelled of alcohol. I must have passed out drunk. I tried to remember the events of the previous night as I looked around. A faint moonlight seeped through the thick curtains, and in that light, something gleamed in the darkness. It was the outline of what seemed to be a fish tank. I saw the silvery scales of a fish flash before it disappeared into the darkness. For some reason, I found it oddly erotic and felt a strange excitement, but soon sleep overcame me, and I collapsed back onto the sofa. The next time I woke, sunlight was streaming through the curtains. "Wake up!" Kyosuke's face was right in front of mine, and I let out a dumbfounded, "Huh? Are you that disappointed?" Kyosuke seemed to understand the situation and explained what had happened. Apparently, after I had passed out drunk at the offline meeting the previous night, the remaining women debated what to do with me. Since Kyosuke lived nearby, they decided to drag me back to her apartment. Feeling guilty, I sat up and listened to her explanation. "Don't worry about it," she said, and made me some coffee. That's when I noticed the fish tank in the corner of the room, the same one I had seen the night before. Strangely, though, it was filled with nothing but water. "I thought I saw a fish in there last night," I said. Kyosuke's eyes widened at my words. "You saw it?" She leaned in closer. When I nodded, she began to tell me a strange story. Back when she was in high school, there was a craze for black magic-like games among the students. Most of it was harmless fortune-telling, but some groups took it to the next level, to the point where people started getting hurt. Kyosuke was close to the leader of one such group and had participated in a few of their secret meetings. One day, the leader, with a serious expression, said, "I'm thinking of summoning a demon. This nameless demon would bring disaster in exchange for consuming something from the person who summoned it." "Doesn't it grant wishes?" I interjected, since that's usually the case. But Kyosuke replied, "That's why I wanted to try it." So, they performed the ritual, with Kyosuke as the summoner. During the ritual, everyone except Kyosuke and the leader started having epileptic seizures, and the Black Magic Club was disbanded after that. Did the demon appear? Kyosuke's eyes wandered for a moment. "I'm not sure what that was," she said, and then fell silent. Even as someone who loves the occult, the mention of demons made me a bit uneasy. But I had learned from my deep dive into the occult that it's all about what you call it. So I didn't dismiss her story. "It eats dreams, doesn't it?" The meaning behind the phrase that had stuck with me earlier suddenly became clear, but Kyosuke shook her head. "It eats nightmares." Hearing that, I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Kyosuke had said, "I don't dream," yet this demon only consumes nightmares. Thinking about what that could mean sent a shiver down my spine.